الحمد لله الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وأزواجه وذرياته أجمعين. أما بعد، فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولقد آتينا لقمان الحكمة أن اشكر لله ومن يشكر فإنما يشكر لنفسه ومن كفر فإن الله غني حميد. صدق الله العظيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وأزواجه وذرياته أجمعين. Respected brothers, elders, young friends, mashallah, we only have two lectures left after Asr today and then tomorrow, and then inshallah Tuesday I have to leave inshallah. So inshallah just the 2 days I thought maybe I'll share with you some very pertinent advices and amazing advices of Sayyidina Luqman Hakim. I'm sure everyone knows here who Luqman Hakim was. His name is mentioned in the Quran. In fact, there is an entire surah named after Sayyidina Luqman. Was he a Nabi of Allah? Was he not a Nabi of Allah? It seems, number one, Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah has an opinion that he was a Nabi of Allah. This is the opinion of Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah. Imam Bukhari rahimahullah has mentioned Luqman Hakim in the chapter where he's mentioned the Anbiya alayhimus salam. 25 Anbiya are mentioned in the Quran by name. 25 Anbiya are mentioned in the Quran. Imam Bukhari rahimahullah has mentioned approximately 19 names of the Anbiya alayhimus salatu salam in Sahih Bukhari. Alongside one of the Anbiya, most probably I think is Dawood alayhi salatu salam, he's made a mention of Sayyidina Luqman Hakim. So the view of Imam Bukhari seems to be that Luqman Hakim was also a Nabi of Allah. But majority of the scholars, like Allama Qurtubi rahimahullah, who's a great Maliki scholar, and he's wrote a book in Tafsir Ahkamul Quran. He is of the opinion, mana'ahu nubuwah. Yani Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a'tahu al-hikmah. A'tahu Allah al-hikmah wa mana'ahu nubuwah. Allah Ta'ala gave him immense wisdom, but Allah Ta'ala did not make him a Nabi. Hafiz ibn Kathir rahimahullah in Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya is wrote a phenomenal kitab, mashallah. It's been translated into Urdu with the name of Tarikh ibn Kathir. In Arabic it's called Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya. In English it's called From Beginning to End. From Beginning to End is one of the greatest kitabs of Islamic history. Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya, written by the great Shafi'i scholar Hafiz ibn Kathir alayhi rahmah. So in Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya, he mentions in regards to Luqman Hakim that he was not a Nabi of Allah. Yes, most certainly he was a Wali of Allah. He was a Wali of Allah. We know the nature of Luqman Hakim. You know, mashallah, whenever you speak about wisdom, the name Luqman comes to mind. Inshallah, you will see it is amazing. Most probably it seems he lived during the zamana and the era of Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salam. He lived during that time. Although others are of the opinion he was between the zamana of Isa alayhi salam and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in between. So, but majority are of the opinion he was an African. Luqman Hakim was an African. 3 great Africans have passed in Islamic history. And mashallah, you know, we should never ever look down upon anyone because of their skin color. Okay, because mashallah, inna akramakum indallahi atqakum wat taqwa hahuna. Taqwa is in the heart. Who has what taqwa? Who am I and you to judge? Okay, that is taqwa. This is why there is a possibility. Hazrat Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanwi rahimahullah used to mention a beautiful sentence. He says, right now, every believer is better than me. Halaki, he's a reviver of the 20th century of Islam. As Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanwi rahmatullahi is a mujaddid of the ummah. And he says, I swear by Allah, every believer is better than me. Why? Because taqwa is in the heart. Maybe Allah Ta'ala dislikes a work of mine, a quality of mine, an action of mine, and that may become the means of my doom and my fall. Whereas, no matter you have a young boy who's a drug dealer in the street, but maybe Allah Ta'ala likes something from him, and maybe Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala make that a means of the pardon of that individual. Hazrat Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanwi rahimahullah used to say, Fil hal, at this moment in time, every believer is better than me. And every non-believer has the potential of becoming better than me. Why? Because maybe Allah Ta'ala may grant him iman. And maybe Allah Ta'ala deprive me of iman. You just don't know. So don't look down upon anyone. So 3 great Africans. Number 1, Luqman Hakim. Number 2, Sayyidina Bilal Habashi. On the occasion of Mi'raj, when Rasulullah comes back, he says, "Oh Bilal, why is it, what action do you have that I realize your footsteps in front of me in Jannah?" Sayyidina Bilal. And he said, "Oh Messenger of Allah, what action do you have?" Messenger of Allah, when I do wuzu, I always read 2 rakat Tahiyyatul Masjid when I come I read 2 rakats of Tahiyyatul Wudu when I come into the masjid. Hadith mentioned by Imam Bukhari rahimahullah in Kitab Salat. إِذَا دَخَلَ أَحَدُكُمُ الْمَسْجِدِ فَلَا يَجْلِسْ حَتَّى يَرْكَعْ رَكْعَتَيْنِ. When any one of you come into the masjid, don't sit down until you've read 2 rakat namaz. Read the Tahiyyatul Masjid. Allah maaf kare, our Gujarati community and the Pakistani and the Bangladeshi community, that concept is gone. Amongst the Arabs is very, very common. They will not sit down until they don't read the 2 rakat namaz. You must read, it's not compulsory, but you should read that 2 rakat namaz so long it's not a makruh time. So long it's not makruh time, you should make sure, for example, if you come after Asr namaz, before Maghrib, okay, then you will sit down, because that is time makruh to read the nafal namaz, according to the Hanafiya. Okay, anyway, so this is Luqman Hakim, number 1. Number 2, Sayyidina Bilal al-Habashi. And number 3, Saeed ibn Jubair. Saeed ibn Jubair. He's a student of Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. He was born in 45 AH and he passed away in 95 AH. He's an Abyssinian, an amazing individual. He was assassinated by Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. He was killed by Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. Hajjaj ibn Yusuf is a Muslim. A conservative estimation, he killed 120,000 Muslims over the course of his life. A Muslim. And he's killed 120,000 Muslims during the course of his era, of his rule. Hassan Bisri rahimahullah used to say, Zalim insan, Zalim. He's killed 120,000 people, but I feel Allah Ta'ala will even forgive him on the day of Qiyamah. Because he used to read 200 rakat of nafal namaz per day on the side of his farz. Farz, leave that to one side. He used to read 200 rakat of nafal prayer, and we can't even read farz. Allah Ta'ala forgive us. If you do get a chance afterwards, if you do get a chance on Google, mashallah, please don't get your fatwa from Google. We know a lot of people call Google Mufti Google. Okay, but inshallah, for some things, inshallah, it is very, very beneficial. But inshallah, ask Google and just type in there, dialogue between Saeed ibn Jubair and Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. And you believe me, it'll bring tears to your eyes. Just try and read that dialogue. It's an amazing dialogue. Anyway, Hajjaj ibn Yusuf had him assassinated. But such a great individual, a student of Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas, when he passed away, Saeed ibn Jubair, someone saw him in a dream. And they asked him, when Hajjaj ibn Yusuf passed away, someone saw Hajjaj ibn Yusuf in a dream. How did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deal with you that you killed so many individuals? He said, for every individual I killed, and that is 120,000, I was made to taste death once. For everyone I killed. But when it came to Saeed ibn Jubair, I was made to taste death 70 times. 70 times because of the maqam of Saeed ibn Jubair. So an amazing individual. So inshallah, I'd like to share with you one incident. And this is an eye-opener for everyone. Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam met with Luqman Hakim. And if I remember rightly, Hafiz ibn Kathir rahimahullah has quoted this somewhere in Tafsir ibn Kathir. Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salam, said to Luqman Hakim, go and slaughter an animal and bring me the worst part of the animal. Bring me the two worst part of the animal. So Luqman Hakim went, slaughtered an animal, and then brought back, number one, the tongue, and number two, the heart of the animal, and presented it before Dawood alayhi salam, and he said, Sayyidina Dawood, this is the worst part of the animal. Because when the tongue of an individual becomes corrupt, number one, and the heart becomes corrupt, then that is an evil individual. Number one. Number two, he said, now you go back, slaughter an animal, and bring me the best part of the animal. So he goes back, and he brings the tongue, and he brings the heart. And he says, if the tongue is correct, if the heart is correct, then there is no other individual that is better than him. So Luqman Hakim was a very, very wise individual, but he was a slave. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas used to say he was a slave, Abyssinian slave, and he was a carpenter. He was a carpenter. So Sayyidina Luqman Hakim, he says to his son, and he gives him some advice. Just before I move on, inshallah, it's amazing. One day, because he was a servant, he was eating a fruit in the garden of his master. Eating some fruit in the garden of his master. And it was very, very bitter. The fruit was very bitter. When the Aqa and the master came, he took a taste of that food, and it was very bitter. Straight away he put it into the mouth and he spat it out. So the master says to the servant Luqman Hakim, how are you able to eat that? He says, the master who has given me sweet food all these years, if one day if I have to eat bitter, what's the big deal? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us every single day. If it so happens one day the wife forgot the salt in the food, and mashallah, it's there are two ways of reacting. There are two ways of reacting. A person heard a hadith. What was the hadith? If you give happiness to a Muslim, that is a charity for you. That is a charity for you. So one day, the husband takes his wife outside on a moonlit night. And he says to his wife, MashaAllah, Anti ahla min al-qamar. You are more sweeter than the moon. You are more sweet. Initially, the husband says to the wife, Ara'ayti al-qamar. Do you see the moon? The wife says, Na'am. The husband says, Anti ahla min al-qamar. You are more beautiful, you are more sweet than the moon. The wife says, no. Bal anta ahla min al-qamar. No, you are better than the moon. Now, mashallah, they are a very, very happy couple. Now, another individual sees, mashallah, they are very happy. And mashallah, they've gone out and they've seen the moon. And so he decides, let me take my wife and we'll do the same. So he goes out and he says to his wife, Ara'ayti al-qamar. Do you see the moon? So the wife turns around and says, Atazunnuni amya? You think I am blind? You think I am blind? So there are two ways of reacting. Khair, inshallah, I'll just share with you the advices of Luqman Hakim, and they are amazing advices. He says to his son, oh my son, I met many, many Anbiya, and I will give you the gist of the education of the Anbiya alayhimus salatu wasalam. What I learned from the Anbiya alayhimus salam, I can give you in a small formula by mentioning to you 8 sentences. Bas. And that is the conclusion of the ta'limat of the Anbiya alayhimus salam. One person came to Luqman Hakim and said, where did you get all this wisdom from? MashaAllah, you are so wise. Where did you get it from? You know what he said? I got it from those people who are jahil, ignorant, and have no wisdom. I got it from those people who have no adab, who have no mannerism, who are completely ignorant and jahil. I got all my adab, I got all my hikmah from them. How is that possible? He says, because what they do, I do not do it. And I become wise. And he says, I become wise by controlling my tongue. I became wise by controlling my tongue. So inshallah, if we can implement these 8 things, inshallah, you'll become a wali of your time. You will become a wali of your time. Number one, when you are in salat, look after your heart. I'll just run through them. Number one, when you are in salat, look after your heart. Number two, when you sit on the tablecloth to eat, look after your throat. When you sit down to eat, look after your throat. Number three, when you go into someone's house, look after your eyes. Number four, does anyone remember? Yeah? Yes. Heart, yes. Yes. The throat. MashaAllah. So when you, there are four things. Number one, when you are in salat, look after your heart. When you are on the dastarkhan, look after your throat. When you go to someone's house, look after your eyes. When you sit in a gathering, look after your tongue. Control your tongue when you sit in a gathering. Number five and number six, always remember two things in life. Remember Allah and remember death. So that's 5 and 6. 7 and 8. Always forget two things in life. Forget two things in life. Number one, you've done a favor, you've conveyed a favor to someone. You've done it for the sake of Allah. Now you forget it. Because there's no good going around to remember that, remind that individual, you've done him a favor and then you've completely wiped out your reward. So you've done a favor to someone, you've done it for the sake of Allah, now you forget it. And the last one, if someone troubles you, if someone hurts you, forgive him for the sake of Allah and let him go. So these are the 8 things. And these are the khulasa of the entire things that he says he learned from the Anbiya alayhimu salatu wasalam. Now inshallah, I'll just elaborate very, very briefly on them. Number one, when you are in salat, look after your heart. Hazrat Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanwi rahimahullah used to say, salat is ummul ibadat. Salat is the mother of all our ibadat. What Hazrat Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanwi rahmatullah is saying, it's very, very interesting. He says, namaz is a combination of all our ibadat put together. When you start your salat, a believer will not stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A non-believer will not stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the fact you are standing in salat is a manifestation that you believe in Allah. So your aqaid is already there. Number one. Number two, when you are in salat, you are in salat. Number two, when you are in salat, you are fasting. Because if you eat, your salah will break. When you are in salat, you also giving zakat. Zakat in the sense, okay, you have to have clothing to cover your body. And to cover your body and to have clothing, you need money. So there is a concept of zakat and spending in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then there is also a hajj. There is also a hajj in your salat. Because for hajj, where do you have to go? Makkah Mukarramah. When you are in salat, you are facing what direction? To Makkah Mukarramah. So there is also that as well. So you got everything. You got i'tikaf in salat as well. Because you have to stay in the masjid, in i'tikaf. When you come for your salat, mashallah, in salat, you are in i'tikaf. And then there is qurbani in your salat as well. Okay, you have to be focused on one thing, etc., etc. So inshallah, namaz, if you can correct the 4 things in your salat. See, what the advice of Luqman Hakim is saying, namaz, there are 2 parts to salat. Number 1, the external of salat. And number 2, the internal of salat. MashaAllah, when it comes to our external, everyone is on autopilot. You know, MashaAllah, you know when the plane is flying, what happens? MashaAllah, you'll see the captains are both eating. Okay, because the plane is on longitude, latitude, it's on autopilot, okay, it'll just continue. The plane is on autopilot, our salat becomes autopilot. Okay, I have to do this, I have to do this, and we don't know anything. Okay, go outside after Maghrib and nudge your neighbor and ask him, what did the Imam read in the 2nd rakat? May Allah forgive us, sometimes maybe the Imam don't even remember what the Imam read in the 2nd rakat. You know, sometimes we just do not remember because our salat has just become just a ritual thing. when it comes to our salat, what Luqman Hakim is saying, make the external of your salat correct and make the internal of your salat correct as well. Now, how do you do that? There is a hadith of Sayyidina Abu Huraira. When Sayyidina Abu Huraira asked Rasulullah for some advice, what did Rasulullah tell him? Rasulullah told him, do three things, O Abu Huraira. Number one, لا تكلم بكلام تعذر منه غدا. First he said, صلي صلاة مودع. Read every salat of your life as if this is the last salat of my life. If you can do that, then inshallah your namaz will become fine. So every time you say Allahu Akbar and you start your salat, it's as if this is the last salat of my life. Maybe I will not get another opportunity. Just imagine someone was told, you are going to be killed in the next 5 minutes. And a person says, can you give me 5 minutes to read 2 rakat namaz? Like Sayyidina Khubayb ibn Adi radiyallahu ta'ala. He was captured by the non-Muslims of Makkah Mukarramah. It's a hadith mentioned by Imam Bukhari rahimahullah in Sahih Bukhari. Khubayb ibn Adi radiyallahu ta'ala, he was captured. And then they said, we are going to kill you in the next few minutes. He said, will you allow me to read 2 rakat namaz? He read 2 rakat namaz. And he hastily finished the salat. And then he said to the people, had you not a thought that I am scared of death, I would have prolonged my salat. But because I know you might think that I was scared of death, this is why I've cut short my salat. But just imagine someone is told you got 5 minutes left and you can read 2 rakat namaz. You tell me you are going to think of anything in that salat? Nothing. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you only have 5 minutes left. So Rasulullah is telling Sayyidina Abu Huraira, Salli salata muwaddi'. Number one, read as if every namaz is the last salat of your life. Number one. Number two, وَلَا تَكَلَّمْ بِكَلَامٍ تَعْذِرُ مِنْهُ غَدًا. Don't utter words with your tongue that tomorrow you have to regret. You know, that's what Luqman Hakim used to say. Luqman Hakim used to say, the tongue of an intellectual individual is behind his brain. The tongue of an intellectual individual is behind his brain. And the tongue of a stupid individual is in front of his brain. A stupid person will first speak, and then he will think, what did he say? Then he will come and he'll say sorry. But an intellectual person will, first he will think, what am I about to say? If it's good, then he will say it. So number one, read salat as if this is the last salat of my life. Number one. Number two, don't utter a word that tomorrow you will have to regret. And number three, وَأَجْمِعِ الْأَيَاسِ أَمَّا فِي أَيْدِ النَّاسِ. Become completely independent of the wealth of the people. Don't be greedy for what the people possess. Just what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, you should remain content with that. Now, how do we focus ourselves in salat? How do we concentrate ourselves in salat? Number one, when you stand up and you say Allahu Akbar, think as if Allah Ta'ala is looking at me. Initially, the main thing is say that I am looking at Allah. But that is not possible. So then the second thing is Allah Ta'ala is looking at me when you are reading salat. If you can't do these two things, then number three, you have to read your salat in Arabic. So the way you are reading your Arabic, try and make sure you are clear and you are reading with tajweed. When you are thoroughly reading with tajweed, inshallah, that will give you a focus. And those who also understand the Arabic language as well, try and contemplate the meanings of what you are reading. And in that manner, inshallah, we try and focus on our salats. MashaAllah, you know, there is one Sahabi, Abbad ibn Bishr. Abbad ibn Bishr, radiyallahu anhu. He and Sayyidina Ammar ibn Yasir. These were two individuals that were left to guard the Muslim army during a battle overnight. So Sayyidina Abbad ibn Bishr was struck by the enemy with an arrow. And he got arrow after arrow on his body. And he started bleeding, and he was profusely bleeding. You will not believe, until he did not finish the surah, he did not break his salat because of how he felt in the salat. And when he finished salat, there was blood all around him. But they did not, mashallah, we are so concentrating on salat. If you have a fly, then mashallah, your salat is gone. If we have a fly, salat is gone. And if it's a mosquito, then even more dangerous. And if it's a mouse crawling around, then mar gaya. If it's a mouse, then it's a big trouble. Khair, inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us what we call true salat. So number one, the first advice, when you are in salat, look after your heart. Because that heart belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so be concentrating on your salat. Number two, inshallah, I'll just try and wrap through them, inshallah. Number two, and this is very, very important. When you sit on the dastarkhan, look after your throat. When you sit on the dastarkhan, look after your throat. There are two meanings of that. Number one, don't overeat. Control how much you eat. You know, a lot of people, some people, bichara, they are eating, and they are eating out of control. In the month of Ramadan, those people who eat excessively at the time of iftar, you believe me, how difficult it is to read Taraweeh. It's very, very, very hard. But number one meaning, don't overeat. The hadith mentioned by Imam al-Tirmidhi rahimahullah, make 3 parts of your food. Meaning 3 parts of your stomach. 1 for your food, 1 for water, and 1 for air. Hazrat Mufti Taqi Usmani, Hafizahumullah, used to say, Pet bharkar khao. Okay, no problem. Eat to your fill. But ji bharkar mat khao. Don't fill your nafs. Fill your belly, but not your nafs. So example, what does that mean? MashaAllah, you've already ate well at home. You've all ate well. Now after that, someone, your neighbor, after you finish eating, your neighbor gave you some wonderful Pakistani pulao or some Gujarati biryani or dar chawal or something. And he said, MashaAllah, it looks very nice. But you've already ate to your fill. You've ate to your fill. And I said, this is because it looked very nice. Now you start eating that as well. That is jibar kar khana. You don't do that. So number one, you know, they say, Sayyida Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha says, the first bid'ah to come about in the ummah is eating to your fill. That was the worst pot a individual can fill is the pot of the belly. Inshallah, the second meaning of this is, make sure the intake of your food is halal. What you eat is halal. Inshallah, I'm just going to share this with you. I'm going to share this with you because this is my personal experience. You tell me, we go to Umrah in Makkah Mukarramah. We are in the state of Ihram. We are in front of the Ka'batullah. We are making dua. And we've gone for Umrah and Hajj so many times. And we feel our du'as are still not being accepted. One of the reasons is because the hadith mentioned by Imam Muslim, a individual will come with a long safar. After a long journey, he will come in front of the Ka'batullah. He raises his hands and is making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where is his dua going to be accepted? When his food is haram. His food is haram, his dua is not going to be accepted. The reason why I'm mentioning this to you, right in front of the haram, bin Dawood, you have bin Dawood. Does anyone remember what you have there? The food joint? What's there? In the bin Dawood complex, right in front of the haram. You come out of gate number 79, King Fahd gate, and you got the Rolex building, and you got bin Dawood. There you have a KFC. I'm sure you've seen it. Okay, there you have KFC. I went and I met a Bangladeshi brother working there. And I said to him, brother, we've come here, we want to eat. Can you tell me, guaranteed, the food and the chicken you are selling here is halal? He says, I'm not allowed to tell you. He said, I'm not allowed to tell you. He said, brother, I don't know you, you don't know me. Okay, if I ever do relate it to someone, okay, no one knows who you are. I give you a promise, inshallah, I will never tell anyone in terms of, okay, you know, it was you who said it. He said, okay. He says, let me tell you, chickens are all imported in KFC, and I don't eat myself. He says, do you need to know anything else? He said to me, do you need to know anything else? I do not eat. And then he told me what was shocking, the chickens coming from Holland. Chickens come from Holland in KFC. My advice to everyone, you are going there, not eating chicken from KFC for 1.5 weeks is not going to do any harm. But eating haram, you will stay there, and maybe it will, your du'as will have absolutely no impact. Inshallah, I'll relate to you one incident of, how important it is to safeguard ourselves from haram. Ali ibn al-Madini, rahimahullah, is a great scholar of hadith. Ali ibn al-Madini. He is a contemporary of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, the likes of Yahya ibn Saeed al-Qattan, وغيره وغيره. Ali ibn al-Madini, rahimahullah, says, my father passed away. So I made a practice of mine every day after Fajr namaz. I used to go up to my father's grave because it was local. I used to go to my father's grave and I used to sit there. I used to read Quran and then I used to come back. One day I went after Fajr and I sat there reading Quran near the graveside of my father, and suddenly I hear a shouting, someone shouting. And I realize I'm looking around and I can't find anyone. And then when I'm slightly, I paid attention and I realized a few graves from my father's grave, the voice is coming from there. So I go there and I try and hear, and I can only hear shouting and crying from inside the grave. So I sat there, I read the Quran. Over time, okay, as much Quran as I read, slowly, the voice died down. And then obviously by the morning time, people came to the graveside. So I was there. I asked some of the elderly people, who does this grave belong to? So they gave me a name. The name they gave me, I knew him. Ali ibn al-Madini says, I knew the individual. So then I thought, I need to really look into this individual. Why is this individual being punished? So I came back into the locality and I asked the elderly people of the community of his age. And I asked them, okay, what, do you know anything in regards to this individual? He says, every single individual said, MashaAllah, he was a very, very good man. He used to read all his salat in the front saf, in the first saf, bilkul right near the imam. And he was a very, very pious man. And he was a very generous man as well, very, very good man. He did not have children because his children passed away. But he was a very, very rich man. He himself was a very, very rich man. So he says, what he decided to do because of some of his friends, he decided there's no way I can run my business myself. So he sold the entire business. And all the money that he got, he gave it on interest. He gave it on interest for the people to borrow. So example, you want £50,000, $50,000 at the end of the year, or at the end of every month, just interest alone, you'll have to give me a few hundred dollars. So that was his entire source of income. He's left halal income, he's made haram income, his sole income. He says, but I realized that was the reason of his punishment in the grave. They go, Sayyidina Anas ibn Malik came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Sayyidina Anas ibn Malik, and said, Messenger of Allah, can you make dua for me? That, whenever I make dua, Allah Ta'ala readily accept my dua. Can you, O Messenger of Allah, make dua for me, Allah make me mustajabud da'wat. Rasulullah only told him two things. Number one, eat halal, and number two, earn halal. Eat halal and earn halal. What is the harm of earning haram? Number one, when it comes to ibadat, you will become lazy. If you become lazy in your ibadah, this is a sign, most probably, I've ate something haram. I have ate something haram, number one. So you become lazy. So example, after Ramadan, you will not want to come to the masjid. This is a possibility you might have had intake of haram. Number one. Number two, you will have no inclination to do good. For example, how many people pick up the Quran after the month of Ramadan? A lot of people, it's Ramadan to Ramadan. For the entire year, we just have no inclination of doing good. Hazrat Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanwi rahimahullah used to say, number three, you will lose the light which is in the heart. And the heart will become dark. And number four, there will be evil desires all the time. There will be evil desires in your system. You want to watch a movie, you want to do this, you want to watch TV, okay, you want to speak to the opposite gender, you want to speak to your friend, okay, from school, وغيرها وغيرها. Every time you want to fulfill a desire. There is a hadith. If I remember rightly, it's mentioned in Kitabul Kabair. It's a dangerous hadith. Shaitan tells all the students that he has, look at an individual who is reading namaz, who is reading Quran. Then on the other side, look at his consumption of his food. If his consumption is haram, don't bother. Let him continue with ibadah, with salat, with tilawatul Quran. Do not bother at all. So long his income is halal, then there is a danger. That is an eye-opener for everyone. Inshallah, we make sure, okay, that we do not earn haram, okay, and we make sure our intake is completely halal. You know what Allah says in the Quran to the Anbiya alayhim salam? Ya ayyuhar rusul kulu min at-tayyibat wa'amalu salihah. Eating of halal and tayyib and then wa'amalu salihah have been mentioned together. This is why Imam al-Qushayri rahimahullah used to say, Sahaba were more concerned of eating halal than performing tahajjud namaz. Halakha, they were very particular in regards to tahajjud, but they were more particular in regards to earning halal. Why? Because if your earning is not halal, there will be no tahajjud in your life. Anyone who earns haram, Allah Ta'ala will not give him tawfiq of tahajjud. So inshallah, number one, when you are in salat, look after your heart. When you are on the dastarkhan, look after your throat, which means eat a minimal food, but do not, eat no problem, inshallah, but not to the absolute brim and the full. And number three, when you go to someone's house, look after your eyes. This is my advice to everyone. If you have a stranger that comes to your house and he knows your entire family, whatever you do, don't allow that individual beyond the limitation of your home, i.e. into the kitchen where the women folk are. This is haram. Sometimes, mashallah, his wife, we were together in school, so we know one another. That's why it's more dangerous. This is why it is more dangerous. My advice there must be a no-go area to anyone who comes to your home. They are not allowed beyond a certain point. And if you have to write there, no men beyond this point. No men beyond this point. Because marriages will break up because of extramarital affairs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us, but control your eyes when you go into someone's home. Number 4, inshallah, I'm just going to finish, inshallah. Number four was, when you sit in a gathering, look after your tongue. Just think. They say, think before you ink. In our time, before you send a WhatsApp message, make sure you read it twice, 3 times before you send it. Because once it's gone, you can't take it back. You cannot take it back. So inshallah, this is why, alhamdulillah, we are lucky. We are very, very lucky. The authority of divorce was not given to women. The authority of divorce was given to men, because men are controlling. If it was given to women, mashallah, everyone here would have been a divorcee. Because women are very emotional. Women are very, 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 very emotional. They are not able to control their tongues. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the security that your tongue has. Tongue. That is a security no other limb of the human body enjoys. You have a tongue. Then you got 32 teeth. And then you got the jaw. You got everything. There are two parts of the body that are in excessive veiling. Number 1 is the tongue, and number 2 is a private part. What Allah is telling me and you, think. And not only that, where is the tongue placed? It's near the brain. You think before you speak. So only speak if you know there is benefit coming from it. Mashallah, I'll finish on this, inshallah. Shaykh Sa'di rahimahullah used to say, how do diamonds come about into existence? How do diamonds come about? When the rainwater falls directly into a shell, into the ocean, that creates a diamond. He says you should only be speaking if you think you will give a diamond with your tongue. If you feel you are going to give a diamond to someone with your tongue, only then you should be speaking. Otherwise you should not speak. Khair, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the other 4, inshallah, we already know. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those who control our eyes. MashaAllah, now we're coming to summer. Now we are coming to summer. It's very, very important we control our eyes. You come to the masjid, You stay in the masjid for 2, 3, 4 hours, you read the Quran, and then you go into the marketplace, and then you look at the cashier, okay, with your eyes wide open. Remember, your spirituality is destroyed, is gone. Whatever you've attained in 3 hours in the masjid, with one blink of an eye in the bazaar and the marketplace, it is completely gone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يَعْلَمُ خَائِنَةَ الْأَعْيُنِ. Allah ta'ala knows the khiyanat and the cheating of the eyes. Allah ta'ala will take us to task. So inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq, okay, to look after our eyes. Okay, don't read those magazines or newspapers which are filthy newspapers. Okay, don't go onto filthy websites that are filthy. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all. May Allah grant us all taqwa, inshallah. Before we do anything, at the forefront of our mind, we have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay, I can't do it. Inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the tawfiq. May Allah accept all our ibadat. Wa sallallahu ala khayri khalqihi Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.